The human exploration ship Vanguard Dawn moved slowly through the blue mist of space. Inside the ship, Captain Arlen Cross stood near the main window and looked at the strange planet ahead. The planet was called Zyphora. It shined with soft purple oceans and tall silver clouds. This was the first time humans had ever reached this world. Arlen was calm on the outside, but inside his heart was beating fast. He had trained for many years for missions like this. He was not the strongest man, nor the smartest, but people trusted him because he never gave up. That was why he was chosen to lead this expedition. Behind him, the crew moved with quiet focus. Engineers checked systems. Scientists studied data screens. Soldiers stood ready, even though the mission was peaceful. Everyone knew first contact could change history. "Captain," said Dr. Myra Chen, the lead scientist, "we are receiving a signal. It's not hostile. It looks like an invitation." Arlen turned. "From the planet?" "Yes, the Zyphorans are welcoming us. They want us to land near their main city." Arlen nodded. "Then we accept." The ship slowly entered the atmosphere. The ride was smooth, far smoother than human ships usually managed. The Zyphoran technology guiding them from below was advanced, gentle, and precise. When the ship landed, the human crew looked outside in silence. The city was beautiful. Tall crystal towers rose from the ground like frozen light. Wide paths curved gently between buildings. Strange glowing plants grew along the streets, moving softly as if breathing. And standing there, waiting calmly, were the Zyphorans. They were tall, graceful, and clearly not human. Their skin shimmered with soft colors that changed slightly in the light. Their eyes were large and bright, filled with intelligence and curiosity. All of them were female, or at least they appeared so to human understanding. Arlen stepped forward with a small team. He raised his hand slowly in a peaceful gesture. "I am Captain Arlen Cross of Earth," he said clearly. "We come in peace." One of the Zyphoran women stepped forward. She was tall even among her kind, with calm eyes and confident posture. "I am Lyra," she said in perfect human language. "You are welcome on Zyphora, Captain Arlen." The humans exchanged surprised looks. Arlen raised his eyebrows slightly. "You speak our language." Lyra smiled gently. "We learned it quickly." "We have been watching your species for some time." That answer caused mixed feelings among the humans, but Arlen stayed calm. "Then I hope what you have seen made you willing to meet us." "It did," Lyra said. "Humans are interesting." The word carried curiosity, not judgment. The Zyphorans guided the humans into the city. As they walked, Arlen noticed something strange. The Zyphorans moved with endless energy. None of them seemed tired. None stopped to rest. Some carried heavy equipment while talking. Others worked on glowing consoles without pause. Hours passed. The humans began to feel it. Sweat formed on brows. Shoulders stiffened. Legs grew heavy. They tried to hide it, but Lyra noticed. "You are slowing," she said kindly. "We are fine," Arlen replied, though his breath was slightly deeper. Lyra tilted her head. "You have been active for only 3 cycles." Arlen frowned. 3 cycles?" Lyra seemed surprised. "Yes, you require rest after that." Dr. Chen stepped forward. "Wait, how long is a cycle?" Lyra pointed toward the sky. "1 full planetary rotation, about 8 of your hours." The humans stared. "You mean," one engineer whispered, "they've been active for 24 hours straight, and they think that's short?" Lyra laughed softly, not in mockery but in honest surprise. 3 cycles without rest is nothing. Many of us work 10 cycles without pause." Arlen blinked. 10 without stopping. "Yes, without sleep, without rest." She looked confused. "Is that impossible for humans?" The Zyphoran women around them began murmuring, clearly shocked. Their eyes widened. Some whispered to each other. "That's impossible," one said. "How do they function?" "They are so fragile," another whispered, amazed rather than cruel. Arlen felt the weight of the moment. Humans had crossed galaxies, survived wars, built civilizations. But here, on this world, they were being seen as weak. But Arlen did not feel shame. He felt curiosity. That may be true, Arlen said calmly, but humans find other ways. Lyra studied him closely. I would like to see that. They were taken to a large open structure that looked like a training hall. Inside, Zyphorans were working on complex machines, adjusting energy flows, lifting heavy components, and running simulations on massive glowing platforms. Lyra gestured toward a section of the hall. This system regulates our city's shield. It must be adjusted continuously during storm seasons. Many of us work here without pause. Arlen looked at the system. It was complex beyond anything he had seen. You never stop, Lyra nodded. Stopping would cause failure. The humans exchanged looks. Arlen turned back to Lyra. May we observe? Of course, she replied. Hours passed as the humans watched. Zyphorans worked with perfect focus. No mistakes, no signs of fatigue. One of the human soldiers whispered, "They're machines." Arlen shook his head. "No, they're alive. Just different." As time passed, one of the Zyphoran systems flickered slightly. Not a failure, just a tiny delay. Lyra noticed it instantly. "That should not happen," she said. Before anyone could react, Arlen stepped forward. "May I look?" Lyra hesitated, then nodded. Arlen studied the flow patterns on the display. He didn't fully understand the technology, but he noticed something else. The system assumed perfect continuous input. No pauses, no recovery. "What if," Arlen said slowly, "instead of forcing constant output, you allow brief micro-adjustments?" Lyra looked at him. "Explain." "Humans cannot work endlessly," Arlen said. "So we designed systems that forgive weakness. Small breaks, small resets. It makes them stronger over time." The Zyphorans watched as Arlen made a suggestion. It was small, almost simple. The system stabilized. The flicker disappeared. Silence filled the hall. Lyra stared at the display. "That should not have worked." "But it did," Arlen replied. A murmur spread among the Zyphoran women. They solved it without endurance. They adapted. Lyra turned to Arlen slowly. "You cannot last 3 cycles without rest, yet you compensate with thought." Arlen smiled slightly. "Humans survive by adapting, always have." Lyra looked at him with new eyes. "Captain Arlen," she said, "our people believed endurance was the highest strength. Today you showed us another." The humans were exhausted when they returned to their ship that night. Some collapsed into chairs, others leaned against walls. But Arlen stood by the window again, looking at Zyphora's glowing city. They were not stronger than the Zyphorans, not faster, not tireless, but they were human, and that meant something. Far below, Lyra watched the human ship from a balcony. She had lived many cycles, seen many species, but never one like this. "They cannot endure like us," she whispered, "but they do not break." And for the first time, the Zyphorans wondered what humans might become if given the chance. The real test had only just begun. Morning on Zyphora did not feel like morning to the humans. The light outside the Vanguard dawn was soft and steady, not rising or falling the way Earth's sun did. For the Zyphorans, time flowed differently. For the humans, their bodies still demanded sleep. Captain Arlen Cross woke slowly, his muscles heavy. Around him, the ship was quiet except for low system sounds. One by one, crew members began to move, stretching, yawning, rubbing tired eyes. On the city below, Zyphora was already active. Lyra stood on a high platform overlooking the training grounds. Zyphoran women moved across the wide open space, lifting energy cores, adjusting shield pylons, and running complex simulations. None showed signs of rest or fatigue. To them, this was normal life. But Lyra's thoughts were not calm. She kept thinking about the human captain, about how his body slowed, how his breath deepened, and yet how his mind stayed sharp. How he saw a weakness in a system that her people had trusted for generations. "Endurance is not the only strength," she whispered. Soon, a signal arrived from the human ship. Lyra allowed herself a small smile. "Prepare the grounds," she said. "The humans are coming." When Arlen and his team arrived, they looked more alert than the day before but still clearly different from the Zyphorans. Their movements were careful, their steps measured. "You rest," Lyra observed as they approached. "Yes," Arlen said honestly. "We must." Lyra nodded slowly. "Then today we test something new." She led them to a different area of the grounds. Here, tall structures stood in a circle. Energy lines connected them, glowing softly. The air felt charged. "This is a synchronization field," Lyra explained. "It tests coordination, focus, and endurance together." Arlen studied the field. "What happens inside?" "You work," Lyra replied, without pause. The humans exchanged looks. "How long?" Dr. Chen asked. Lyra answered simply, "Until the task is complete." Arlen stepped forward. "We will try." Inside the field, the humans were given roles. Some adjusted controls. Others monitored energy flow. Arlen coordinated them, his voice calm and steady. At first, it went well. The humans used teamwork, communication, and planning. They rotated tasks when someone slowed. They made small adjustments just as Arlen had suggested the day before. The Zyphorans watched closely. After several hours, the difference became clear. Human hands shook slightly. Focus slipped. Reaction time slowed. One Zyphoran whispered, "They are failing." Lyra did not answer. Inside the field, an alarm tone sounded. The energy flow destabilized. "Captain," an engineer said, breathing hard, "we can't keep this up." Arlen looked at the system. He saw the same pattern again. Continuous demand, no forgiveness. "Stop," Arlen said. The Zyphoran observers reacted at once. "They stopped," someone said in shock. Lyra raised her hand. "Let him continue." Arlen made changes. He rerouted energy through secondary paths, reduced peak load, and allowed short stabilization moments. The system calmed. The task completed. Silence fell. The Zyphoran women stared openly now, no longer hiding their surprise. "They stopped working," one said. "Yet they succeeded." Lyra walked closer to Arlen. "You defied the rules." Arlen smiled tiredly. "We rewrote them." That night, Zyphoran leaders gathered. Lyra stood before them and spoke of what she had seen. Of human limits, yes, but also of human creativity. "They do not endure endlessly," Lyra said, "but they adapt endlessly." Some leaders were impressed, others were uneasy. "If they are weak," one asked, "why do they matter?" Lyra answered calmly, "Because weakness forced them to become more." The next cycle brought change. Zyphora's sky darkened. Energy storms formed far above the atmosphere, swirling with unstable force. Alarms echoed through the city. A storm season had arrived early. Shield towers activated, glowing brighter as they pushed back the growing chaos. Zyphorans moved quickly, efficiently, without rest. Humans watched from the command center. Dr. Chen studied the readings. "The storm intensity is rising too fast." Lyra's expression tightened. "Our shields can endure," she said, "but only if they are maintained without interruption." Arlen leaned closer to the display. He saw the truth immediately. "They can endure," he said, "but the system can't." Lyra looked at him. "Explain." "The shields assume perfect operation," Arlen replied. "No mistakes. No delays, but storms don't care about perfection." A sudden surge hit the outer barrier. One tower flickered. Zyphoran operators reacted instantly, pushing harder. The flicker worsened. "They're overloading it," Arlen said. "Endurance is our way," Lyra replied sharply. "And adaptability is ours," Arlen said just as firmly. "Let us help." Lyra hesitated. Another surge struck. This time, part of the shield dimmed. The room filled with tension. Lyra turned. "What do you need?" "Access," Arlen said, "and trust." She gave both. Humans and Zyphorans worked side by side. Arlen coordinated mixed teams. Humans adjusted systems to allow flexibility. Zyphorans provided raw power and speed. The storm roared outside, shaking towers and darkening the sky. Hours passed. Humans rotated, rested briefly, returned. Zyphorans continued without pause. Slowly, the system stabilized. The storm did not stop, but the city held. When it was over, exhaustion filled the room. Humans sat heavily, breathing hard. Zyphoran stood tall, but something had changed in their eyes. Respect. Lyra looked at Arlen. You endured in your own way. Arlen nodded. So did you. As the humans returned to their ship, news spread through Zyphora. Humans were no longer seen as fragile visitors. They were partners. Above the city, the storm clouds faded. But far beyond Zyphora, something else had noticed the surge of energy. Something watching. And the next test would not be a simulation. The storm had passed, but Zyphora did not return to normal. High above the planet, far beyond the reach of its shields, something moved in the dark. It was not alive in the way humans or Zyphorans understood life. It was a massive automated force, ancient and patient. It had been drifting through space for centuries, searching for strong energy signals. The storm response had been strong, strong enough to be noticed. On Zyphora, Lyra stood in the central command hall, watching new data appear on the main display. Her calm expression finally cracked. This signal, she said slowly, does not belong to any known natural phenomenon. Arlen stood beside her, already studying the numbers. His face hardened. It's artificial, he said, and it's moving. Dr. Chen swallowed toward us. Yes, Arlen answered, fast. Zyphoran leaders gathered quickly. Their voices were controlled, but the tension was clear. They had faced storms, internal failures, even small conflicts in the past, but never something like this. What is it? One leader asked. Arlen answered honestly. We don't know, but whatever it is, it noticed your energy output. That usually means one thing. Lyra turned to him. Danger. Before more could be said, alarms echoed through the city. Not the steady warning of storms, but sharp and urgent. The display changed. A massive structure appeared on screen, dark, angular, covered in glowing lines that pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. The Zyphorans stared in silence. It is a harvester, Lyra said quietly, old knowledge rising from deep memory. A machine civilization. They strip energy from worlds. We believed they were gone. They're not, Arlen said, and they're coming here. The harvester moved closer, its presence distorting space around it. Zyphora's shields reacted automatically, glowing brighter, but Arlen shook his head. That won't work, he said. Lyra looked at him sharply. Our shields have endured storms far worse than this. Storms don't think, Arlen replied. This does. The harvester stopped just outside the shield range. Then, without warning, it fired a focused pulse. Not an attack meant to break the shield, but to test it. The shield flickered. Gasps filled the hall. It's learning, Dr. Chen whispered. The Zyphorans responded as they always had. They pushed more power, increased output, strengthened every line. The shield held. But Arlen's expression darkened. They're doing exactly what it wants, he said. Lyra turned to him. Explain. The harvester feeds on resistance, Arlen said. The more energy you push, the more it learns, the more it adapts. As if to prove his point, the machine fired again. This time the pulse adjusted slightly. The shield flickered longer. Zyphoran endurance, their greatest strength, was becoming a weakness. Lyra understood. Her people could work endlessly, push endlessly, but this enemy would never tire either. What do humans do? Lyra asked quietly. When strength fails, Arlen met her gaze. We change the game. A plan formed quickly. It was risky, uncomfortable. Against everything Zyphoran instinct believed. They would lower the shields, not fully, but enough to appear weak. The leaders resisted at first. Fear rippled through the room. To lower the shield is death, one said. To keep it high is also death, Arlen replied calmly. Just slower. Lyra raised her hand. We will listen. The plan was simple in idea, complex in execution. Humans would reconfigure the shield system, adding unpredictable fluctuations, controlled pauses, false weaknesses. The harvester would see inconsistency, not endurance, confusion instead of resistance. Zyphorans would provide the raw energy when needed. Humans would control when and how it flowed. a partnership of opposites. As the work began, the difference between species became clear again. Xiphorans worked without pause, maintaining power lines, holding systems stable for long periods. Humans rotated constantly, some working while others rested, thinking, planning, adjusting. At one point, a Xiphoran technician stopped and looked at a human engineer sitting against a wall, eyes closed. "She has ceased," the Xiphoran said in concern. "She's resting," Arlen replied. "She'll be back in minutes." The Xiphoran shook her head in disbelief. "How can she leave her task?" Arlen answered simply. "So she can return better." Above them, the harvester moved closer. It fired again. This time the shield dipped suddenly on purpose. The machine paused. For the first time it hesitated. "It's confused," Dr. Chen said. The harvester adjusted, firing a different frequency. The shield reacted differently again. Not stronger, not weaker, unpredictable. The machine's pulses became more frequent, less precise. "It's adapting too fast," Lyra said. "Yes," Arlen replied, "but it expects patterns. We won't give it any." Then the harvester changed tactics. Long, thin beams extended from its structure, reaching toward the planet. "Not weapons, but probes. They're trying to connect directly," Dr. Chen said. Lyra looked at Arlen. "If they anchor, it's over," Arlen nodded. "Then we stop thinking like shields." He turned to the human soldiers. "Prepare external operation." Lyra stared at him. "You cannot face that machine directly." "No," Arlen said, "but we can distract it." Small human craft launched from the Vanguard Dawn, moving fast and erratically. They didn't attack. They didn't engage. They flew close. Too close. The harvester reacted instantly, shifting focus. Probes retracted. Defensive systems activated. The shield stabilized slightly as pressure shifted. Inside the command hall, Xiphoran leaders watched in shock. "They risk themselves," one whispered. "Why?" Lyra answered softly. "Because they can choose to stop." The human pilots did not have Xiphoran endurance. Their hands shook. Their bodies strained, but they used bursts, short movements, sharp turns, constant changes. The harvester struggled to predict them. One probe fired wildly, missing its target and striking empty space. "That was a mistake," Dr. Chen said in awe. "Yes," Arlen replied, "and machines hate mistakes." The SHIELD team made one final adjustment. They didn't push more power, they cut it. For a brief moment, Xiphora went dark. The harvester surged forward, sensing victory. Then the shield reactivated, not as a wall, but as a pulse. A wave of unstable energy that disrupted the harvester's systems. The machine froze. Energy feedback rippled through its structure. Systems overloaded, not from force but from contradiction. It tried to adapt. It failed. With a silent flash, the harvester collapsed inward, its structure folding into itself. Then it vanished, slipping into a dead drift, powerless and blind. Silence filled the sky. Slowly, light returned to Xiphora. Inside the command hall, no one spoke for a long time. Then a Xiphoran leader stepped forward and bowed. "To the humans," she said, "we believed endurance was perfection. Today, you showed us something greater." Lyra turned to Arlen. Her eyes shone with emotion she rarely allowed herself to feel. "You tire," she said. "You slow, you must stop." "Yes," Arlen replied. "And yet," Lyra continued, "you choose when to rise again. That choice saved us." Arlen smiled faintly. "That's being human." In the cycles that followed, Xiphora changed. Xiphorans began to redesign systems, not to demand endless strength but to allow recovery, to allow error, to allow growth. Humans and Xiphorans worked together, learning from each other. Endurance met adaptability. Strength met will. When the Vanguard Dawn finally prepared to leave, the city gathered to watch. Lyra stood beside Arlen at the landing site. "Will you return?" she asked. Arlen nodded. "If you'll have us." Lyra smiled. "Xiphora will remember humanity." As the ship lifted into the sky, Arlen looked down at the glowing world below. Humans were not the strongest, not the fastest, not the tireless ones, But when the universe pushed them to their limit, they did what they always had. They adapted, and that was why they endured.